Murders at Karlov Manor brings us your new favourite commander card, and no, I am not joking. Crime Novelist is a 3-mana Goblin Bard, which already makes him an incredible magic card. When I saw the name, the art of him drawing with his quill pen, with his like look on his face, and then the Goblin Bard creature type, I was already in love. I think I already tweeted how cool this card was before I'd even realised just how powerful the effect on the card was. And it doesn't take you long to unpack how powerful this effect is. Whenever you sacrifice an artifact and add a +1/+1 counter to Crime Novelist and make a red mana. Let's read that again. Whenever you sacrifice an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on Crime Novelist and make a red mana. And it's also a 1/3, so it doesn't die to X1 or X2 hate. It is a 3-mana creature, so I don't know how competitively viable it's going to be in Modern or Legacy, but I think this card is going to be nuts in Commander and other singleton formats too. Historic Brawl, Gladiator, your Highlander and Canlander formats too, because this plays in some classically broken archetypes. So in today's video, I'm just going to go through a load of things off the top of my head that this card plays into and makes a lot better. I'm mainly going to talk about how it makes mana, by the way. The fact that it just gets bigger and bigger as you sack stuff is also a point. It becomes a huge beta, quite counterintuitively to the art there. And before we move on from that art, look under the table. Fibblethip's hiding under the Crime Novelist's table. This card is the gift that keeps on giving. If you're looking to pick up singles or sealed product, pre-order or buy anything from Murders at Karlov Manor, you can use the link in the description below or the code KENOBI at checkout at coolstuffinc.com to get 5% off your order, and you get one of these wonderful Orc Army tokens. Let's start off with the big boys, shall we? The obvious stuff. Crime Novelist makes Black Lotus more broken. This card makes Black Lotus tap for 4 mana, tap and sack for 4 mana, 3 of any colour, and 1 red. You might be laughing that that's not relevant, but in a situation where you're trying to cast Past and Flames out the bin and keep a black mana up, it probably is. It's not going to break or put the world alight, but I think it's very funny that this card pushes Black Lotus. We finally did it. We broke the Lotus. By the same extension, Lion's Eye Diamond is another card that is already pretty damn broken in Bomberman and Dredge decks in Eternal formats, and again, the Criminal Novelist makes this tap and sack for 4 mana. And on the topic of pushed and broken things, let's talk about treasures. The omnipresent 250 plus cards, I think it is, that make treasures now in the modern day. It is a evergreen mechanic that some argue is making Magic worse. There are pros and cons to treasures. I've done whole videos on that. Treasures tap and sack for 1 mana. With Crime Novelist in play, they tap and sack for 2 mana, 1 of any colour and 1 red. You literally double the efficiency of your treasures, which I think is the thing that really pushes Crime Novelist to be absolutely nuts. Treasure creation is already easy, and the fact that Crime Novelist is in the colours of Dockside Extortionist, hell, it's in the creature types. If you're playing goblins, you can play both Dockside and Crime Novelist and still hit your typal kindred interests. But being able to sack any of your treasures for 2 mana is incredibly strong, and that's probably the one way that most people will utilise Crime Novelist. Beyond that, both clues and foods now tap and sack. Well, you pay 2 into them, but you get 1 mana back. You get a refund, essentially halving the cost of cracking both flues and coods. I really messed up how I said that. It's a strong synergy with something that your deck may already be doing, and thus it's an easy include in that case. It even makes map tokens better, because once you crack the first one, you can crack every map token you have in play, because the 1 mana you make off the Crime Novelist just filters into the next map, which is a theme we're going to see recurring in a moment when I talk about some eggs. But yes, map tokens are made better by Crime Novelist. I mean, Crime Novelist makes any artifact that you're sacking better, obviously that's kind of an upfront and obvious thing, but being able to like sack 3, 4, or 5 map tokens in a row and turn Crime Novelist into like a huge threat where you're exploring onto it and putting counters onto it, that's maybe even good enough for standard. The other upfront one that seems a little bit obvious is Animation Module. As of time of recording, it hasn't spiked yet, but it's a 1 mana artifact that says whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are placed onto a permanent you control, you may pay 1 mana. If you do, create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. And 3 mana tap, choose a counter on target permanent player, give that permanent player an extra counter. Basically, whenever you sack an artifact with the criminal in play, sorry, not the criminal, sorry, the Crime Novelist in play, there's a difference, I think, unless we're talking about, anyway, there's a difference. The animation module will trigger when you put the counter onto the Crime Novelist, and then you can spend the mana generated by it to create a 1/1 servo token. Now, by itself, this doesn't go infinite, but if you add any sack outlet, like some of the stuff I'm coming to in a moment, like Viscera Seer, or any of the artifact sack outlets, you now have an infinite loop that goes infinite. You get an infinitely large or arbitrarily large Crime Novelist. There's probably a load of these, and I'm probably missing a load of them as well. They're not that exciting, because I don't think going infinite with 3 cards is as exciting as you first think, especially in Commander. There's more infinite combos than I've had hot dinners out there, right? But still, I'd be remiss to not mention this in this video. Let's talk about some weirder shit. Okay, let's get on to some more obscure and weird stuff. Scrap Trawler is a 3-mana 3/2 that whenever another artifact you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, return to your hand target artifact card in your graveyard with lesser converted mana cost. So what you can do is you can sack off 2 and 3 drops to bring back your 1-drops. Your 1-drops, then you play them, sack them, and draw cards off them, normally eggs. We'll get onto that in a moment. And you create these like Scrap Trawler loops or value chains. And now with the addition of the Crime Novelist, you're generating 1 red mana every single time. The interesting thing about this is that you can combo with things like Viscera, Seer, and free sack outlets that are easy and readily available. Now, I know Viscera Seer is to sacrifice a creature, but what you've got to remember with Scrap Trawler is that you can play creatures that are also artifacts. You can double up on that synergy. For example, when I was playing Teshar, which is a deck that can't play Novelist, but as an example, I was playing Junk Diver. And Junk Diver is a creature where it dies, you put an artifact from your graveyard to your hand. So part of the loop is you use Junk Diver to grab your largest permanent in the chain, the 4-drop or the 5-drop that you sacrificed. And you can probably cast it once you sacrifice down your chain, because you're making a load of extra and abundance of red mana off the Crime Novelist. And let's talk about eggs and baubles and stars and Wayfarer's baubles even. When I'm saying an egg, I'm normally talking about a cheap artifact, 2 or 1 mana preferably. 0 is also good. That for some sort of cost, sacrificing it is part of that cost. That's just a part of an egg. But you crack the egg to get some sort of advantage, usually replacing itself. In the case of the infamous Wayfarer's Bauble, you sack it to go get a land and put it onto the battlefield tapped. What Wayfarer's Bauble does in this circumstance is it's part of the class of card where its cost is reduced. Essentially, you're getting a refund of 1 mana on the 2 that you're putting into it, so it's cheaper to crack. Wayfarer's Bauble's not really the ones I'm aiming at, but I thought it would be silly not to mention it. But Spell Bombs, for example, can be 1 mana sack, draw a card, or 1 mana of a colour, sack, do a thing, and you're going to get 1 mana and grow your Novelist out of it, so you're kind of mana neutral when activating. And then we get to like Chromatic Star and Chromatic Sphere, that for 1 mana you tap and sacrifice and add 1 mana of any colour. So at this point you're putting 1 mana in, you're sacking it, you're creating a coloured mana of any colour you need, and creating extra red mana. That makes this card a ritual. When I say a ritual, I'm referring to a card that you're putting mana into that makes you more mana than you put into it. Now, of course, you've got to cast the star, so this is talking about it being a ritual on a turn after you've cast it. There's an initial setup investment. Of course, you can make the star cost nothing off of a Semblance Anvil or a Cloud Key. That's another like synergistic combo we could go for here. But the important thing about Star and Sphere is that not only do they make you more mana, but they draw you a card, meaning you're up cards and up mana. And now we're starting to cook a stew. And there's the classic eggs too. Shadowblood Egg is a 1 mana artifact that for 2 and tap and sack, you put 2 mana into your mana pool and draw a card. Again, it's the Sphere and Star situation where we're obviously setting up by playing it a bit earlier, but when we go to crack it with a Novelist in play, we're getting a refund of our costs, so we're only really paying 1, and we're getting 2 mana at the end of it. That's a ritual, and it's drawing you a card. It's a cantripping ritual. And then we obviously have, if we're going to talk about eggs, something that I can't not mention, a card that's already incredibly broken. It probably goes into the Black Lotus Treasures conversation. Crocodile Ironworks, a known entity, 4 mana artifact that allows you to sack artifacts and generate 2 colorless mana. This card is nuts. We all know it is. It's been playable in a modern deck. But what if when we sack our artifacts, we got 3 mana, 2 colorless and 1 red? Oh boy. Making Crocodile Ironworks better is not a difficult task. The card's already incredibly good. But that's kind of spicy, right? And the interesting thing is that the Croc Clan cards, there's 2 of them. There's a Shaman and a Grunt from the set that Croc Clan come from. And they're all like sack an artifact, do a thing. In this case, ping all the creatures without flying on the board. But in this case, with a Novelist out, the Croc Clan Shaman becomes half of a Croc Clan Ironworks, in addition to what it also does with the pinging. And then we come to the cost reduction cards. Psy Master Thropterist is a card that allows you to sack 2 artifacts for 2 mana and draw a card, creating your own divination. That now becomes 1 blue mana, or essentially becomes 1 blue mana. You need the 2 mana to get it going, but you're getting a reinvestment. You're getting to make mana back. No, wait, you're sacking 2 artifacts. You make 2 mana. You actually become mana neutral, converting the blue into a red. Oh, this is pretty good with Crime Novelist. I mean, that's going to be a recurring theme you're going to hear forevermore. Most cards are going to be good with Crime Novelist. That's kind of the point of this video. Dockside Chef is an incredibly cheap 1 mana 1/2 that has a 2 mana activate ability. Sacrifice an artifact or creature, draw a card. Again, you're refunding 1. So you're basically cost reducing the effect of being able to sack artifacts to draw cards. And then we get to cards that allow you to cost reduce to the point that they are basically free. Street Urchin says, commanding creatures you have 1 mana, sacrifice another creature or an artifact, and deal 1 damage to any target. If you're playing this in Jaheira, which is a deck that I love, that I'm not modifying, so Crime Novelist can't make it into that deck. That deck's never being changed again. I'll make a video talking about that concept later down the line. But essentially, if you are tapping an artifact for a green mana off Jaheira, for example, and then firing at your opponent's face, it generates a red afterwards. And then when you tap your next artifact to fire it into your opponent's face, you're netting another red. You're actually generating mana off the Crime Novelist. I'm really sad I can't add it to Jaheira, but I've said that that deck is done. I don't want to go back and make modifications to it in the future. And then we have like the triggering sack effects. Now, Gut is here for two reasons. One, she sacks a thing, which is what the Crime Novelist wants you to do, and it makes the mana in combat, so you've got to use it somewhere. But the point of her being here is that she is the choose a background commander. So you can play Gut, True Soul Zealot with Street Urchin. So you've got this all in the command zone. You're playing the Crime Novelist in your deck. You're sharing a creature type in Goblin, so you're just cooking up a real stew here. And then when you sack bodies to generate a 4/1 skeleton in your combat, going to combat and making it menacing and attacking, you're making a red mana that you can then filter into Street Urchin to fire the 4/1 if you wanted to, or anything else on your board to shoot someone in the face, which then generates another red mana, and you start this chain. Another infamous combo piece from formats of old, Legacy and Modern. I've seen this this card be played in decks. Thopter Foundry is a 2 mana. It's white, black, and blue though, thanks to a hybrid mana, and it says 1 mana, sacrifice a non-token artifact. Create a 1/1 blue Thopter artifact creature token with flying, you gain 1 life. Now the interesting thing here is that you pay 1 mana in, sack a non-token artifact, create a blue Thopter artifact creature token, which you can't sack to the Thopter Foundry itself, but you are creating a loop because you have essentially infinite activations for as long as you have non-token artifacts. Now the combo is Sword of the Meek, which makes you, a load of 1/1s. Usually it's just the number of 1/1s you make and the number of life you gain is equal to the mana you have. In this case, Crime Novelist allows you to go to infinite. Now bearing in mind you can only put this in a 4-color deck because Crime Novelist is red and this is white, black, blue, and hybrid mana matters for color identity for reasons I still don't really understand or care about, or I do care about it, actually frustrates me. But you can play 4-color decks. They exist. Partner commanders and 4-color commanders do exist. And then Retrofitter Foundry is another card that sees a lot of play in Historic and Timeless and Legacy. This has an effect where you sacrifice a servo to make a 1/1 colorless flying Thopter, or you sacrifice a Thopter to make a 4/4 colorless construct. The point is, the second ability costs 1 mana, the sacrificer thing, and that means that it's mana neutral when you make your red afterwards. And if you're sacking Thopters to make 4/4s, you're actually netting mana. Retrofitter Foundry is already incredibly good. The fact that it's made better by Crime Novelist is not it's a footnote in the margin of Foundry, but it's a big point for Crime Novelist. And then we get to free sacrifice outlets. Slowbag Goblin Tinkerer says sacrifice an artifact, target artifact gains instruction turn to turn. Essentially, this allows you to turn all of your artifacts into treasures. You can sack them and make a red mana off of your Crime Novelist, who again shares a creature type. If you haven't noticed, goblins throughout Magic have had this sort of artificer, artifact, synergistic thing on multiple occasions, normally through Darksteel. It's really interesting, Mirrodin and Darksteel, but Mirrodin the plane. It's fascinating to me that the new Krenko and Crime Novelist and a lot of other stuff all have synergies with clues and artifacts, and that's like kind of part of the identity of Red in Murders at Karlov Manor. I wasn't expecting goblins to have that synergy. Either way, Slowbad turns all your artifacts into treasures if you have a Crime Novelist in play. Arcbound Ravager is a 2 mana 0/0 that enters with a 1/1 counter on it thanks to Modular. So when it dies, you can move those counters that are on it to other artifacts in play. And if you sacrifice an artifact, you put a +1/+1 counter on Arcbound Ravager. This is in the class of like super aggressive card that it's Crime Novelist being a 3 mana creature probably stops it from seeing play in non-commander formats, but Arcbound Ravager plus Crime Novelist and a board full of artifacts allows you to grow 2 creatures to be absolutely massive and generate mana for no mana investment. So you're creating mana, which can lead to all sorts of fun effects by, doing all sorts of crazy shit like just casting cards on top of your deck, countering with eggs, so on and so on and so on. And one final honourable mention that probably isn't the best example of what Crime Novelist can do, but I think it's interesting, is that when you activate Cold Oath of Forge Master, so you tap it and sacrifice 3 artifacts, such as before an artifact, and put it into play, you generate 3 red to tar for now. Resolving this ability, whatever you've grabbed, if you've got a 3 mana activate ability, you can activate it. So for example, you could go and get yourself a Sword of X and Y and attach it to one of your creatures. Or more interestingly, you can activate Cold Oath of Forge Master, sack 3 things, make 3 red mana, go get Staff of Domination, pay the 3 mana into it, untap Cold Oath of Forge Master, and go again. You can get a Voltaic key to then untap your Cold Oath of Forge Master. I don't know exactly where we're going with this, but we are doing cool stuff. I guess you can get as a rotate key each time. You could easily untap your card for Forge Master like multiple times. And then I guess with Forge Master, if you're playing Nimble Right Schematic, which when it enters the battlefield or leaves the battlefield, or I guess put into the graveyard, should I say, you make a 1/1 colors construct, you can start to like create bodies as you sack artifacts and kind of chain this in a way that grows your Novelist to be big and just makes a load of things happen. This is very Dirt or Duck. I guess if you had a Blood Artist or a Disciple of the Vaulting player, you're doing more there. Either way, I think it's just a very cool thing that the Crime Novelist enables. And that's it. What did I miss? There's like 1,000,001 things that Crime Novelist does. So let me know in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next one.